One of my most anticipated games of the year has finally dropped, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. The sequel to Fallen Order, which I adored. I love that game for various reasons. Now, I usually like to wait till I beat a game completely. With this game, that's just not feasible, at least if I want to do it in a timely manner. The game is huge, and I'm really not trying to rush through it. Full disclosure, I have put about 20 hours into it though, so I'm pretty deep into the actual game. I'm going to try to keep the review semi-spoiler free. We're going to talk about some of the story elements and gameplay elements, but I'm going to stay away from a lot of the major plot points. So don't worry too much if you're concerned about possible spoilers. Having said that, let's talk about some of the biggest issues I've been hearing about this game, about how broken, about how unplayable it is. Huge frame rate drops, crazy glitches. This seems to be an issue mainly with the PC version of the game. I can't really comment on that. I have it on Series X, and this version has mostly been fine. Aside from some very minor things, although not perfect, there are some technical aspects I think could use a patch. Usually with these modern games, we have performance mode, which is advertised as silky smooth frame rate, but running at a lower resolution, and quality modes that typically cap a game at 30 FPS but have a higher resolution. I usually prefer performance modes because playing a game at 60 FPS with close to 4K resolution looks fantastic. But this time around, I simply wouldn't recommend it. As I've spent time playing Jedi Survivor, I've been bouncing back and forth between performance and quality mode. There's no other way to put this. Performance mode is just, it's ugly. It doesn't look good at all. Quality mode, even though it runs at a lower frame rate, is the clear winner here. Of course, at the end of the day, this all does come down to your own personal preference. But this time around, I simply can't recommend performance mode. Yes, it does look very smooth, and it mostly does maintain a smooth FPS, even during fast-paced multi-enemy encounters. But the drop in graphical quality, it's pretty noticeable compared to other games that I've played in performance mode. Games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Resident Evil 4, Horizon, the graphical quality on performance mode versus quality on those titles, for example, it's not a huge difference. Here, very noticeable. Textures look blurry, there's an incredible loss in detail, especially with faraway objects. I don't know how much you can really tell in the footage here I'm showing, considering that YouTube compresses video, so you may just have to take my word for it, but performance mode does a disservice to an otherwise stunningly gorgeous game. If you're used to games running at 60 FPS, it may take your eyes a little bit of time to adjust while running the game on quality mode, which caps the frame rate at 30 FPS. But quality mode looks stunning. Sometimes I caught myself just staring at the small details in the environment, the vast landscapes you visit. Even faraway objects look very crisp and detailed, instead of blurred and washed out. And it seemed to stay at 30 FPS consistently. I never really noticed any drastic drops. Although quality mode is the superior graphics mode, it still isn't completely perfect. There's still some small graphical issues I ran into. Very minor stuff, but this is a review, and it should be mentioned. In some areas I noticed this weird ghosting effect around Cal's body. Again, I don't know how much you can see it in the footage, but changing it from performance to quality mode back and forth didn't make it go away. It would just come up in random times in certain areas, and when Cal double jumps or does a really fast lightsaber motion, it suddenly gets really blurry for a second. I don't know if this was on purpose, but it just looks like motion blur was turned up to the max for a split second. I experimented with turning motion blur off, film grain off, chromatic aberration on and off. None of those options affected this. It's just there. And in some of the larger areas, there's definitely some textures that pop in, like they weren't quite ready to load in just yet. You'll be walking and you'll see the graphics loading. That was one of the more common issues I noticed. Now, does this affect the game in any real negative way? Well, it depends on how much graphics matter to you. For me, these kind of things are simple, minor inconveniences. And keep in mind, this is all before any updates. Everything I'm saying now may no longer apply in a couple weeks after an update or two. This is as of launch. A game's true strength, though, is gameplay. And this is where Jedi Survivor truly excels. In general, if you enjoyed the gameplay found in Fallen Order, you're gonna like this. Possibly even more. Survivor feels very similar to Fallen Order, but it makes improvements where they're needed. One of the biggest improvements is one of the most requested in Fallen Order. They did it. They added fast travel. If you remember Fallen Order, that was one of the most frustrating things about it, the lack of fast travel. The moments where you'd be on the ass end of a planet, finishing it completely, and you just want to get back to your ship and fly away. You don't want to travel around, you don't want to fight enemies, you just want to leave. But you had to go all the way back on foot through long canyons, passageways, just to go. Now you just find a meditation point and you could warp to any others that you already found. This alone drastically improves navigation in the game. Thank you. Thank you. But that's not the only addition to getting around. Cal also has the ability to tame and ride animals both on foot, and some can even glide in the air to get to hard to reach areas. Now the most important gameplay mechanic, the combat. If you played Fallen Order, it'll be very familiar. Same idea. You swing your lightsaber around, you perform combos combined with force powers and blocking / parrying in order to succeed. Cal does have his basic moveset from Fallen Order, like lightsaber throwing and some force powers. In that game you had to earn them. Here there's no need to relearn all this stuff from scratch. The game builds on the combat further, showing how much Cal has advanced as a Jedi Knight. He gets a lot of new moves, new force powers that are all upgradable by earning skill points, all expected features of this game. What I didn't expect, and is quite a pleasure to see, is the limb cutting from Force Unleashed made its return in Survivor. If I'm fighting a group of stormtroopers and I'm swinging my lightsaber all over the place, I fully expect arms to go flying. That's here. As far as the actual lightsaber combat, much like Fallen Order, this is not a game you could button mash your way through. And I hate comparing games to Souls-like games because I feel everything is compared to Dark Souls now. But it truly is that style of gameplay, where the combat is a rhythm of timed blocks, counterattacks, and lightsaber swipes. If you just go into fights mashing the attack button over and over, you're just not going to get far in the game. However, Survivor is a bit friendlier to newcomers with the inclusion of multiple stances that get unlocked as the game progresses. And as the player, you can decide which one you personally prefer. Some examples of the double-bladed lightsaber, great for crowd control. Using 2 lightsabers in combat, that's my favorite one, it just looks so cool. There's a Kylo Ren style saber that makes the attacks very strong but very slow. A combination of lightsaber and blaster attacks. There's a style here for everybody. So if one style is uncomfortable for you or hard to get a hang of, there's plenty others to experiment with as the game progresses, and plenty of chances for you to master those. I'm playing on the hardest difficulty, Jedi Grandmaster, and have noticed that the combat's significantly easier than Fallen Order. It's a bit more forgiving, but it is still quite the challenge to master. On this difficulty, 1 to 2 hits for a while kills Cal. But if that's not your preferred style of playing, if you don't like punishing yourself in games, you can pick any of the multiple easier difficulties. There's no achievements or trophies for difficulty, so play what you like. And Cal's not alone this time either. There's moments in the game where a partner character helps, and you can send them to attack enemies. All of this is just Fallen Order with huge additions and improvements. Fallen Order on steroids. And what is there to do in this game? Well, there's a ton of things aside from the main quests. Once you get a heart attack seeing that total install size of almost 140 gigabytes, and you play the game, you realize why it's such a large file. Jedi Survivor is massive in scale. Aside from the main objectives and multiple worlds to visit, like in the first one, there's a lot of extras that are optional to partake in, but they do help flesh out the universe and give the game a ton of playtime. There's side quests in the form of rumors and bounties that flow into smaller storylines and bounty hunter battles. And you get your own personal garden that you can customize using seeds found throughout the environment. There's endurance challenges that award skill points needed for upgrades. So many extras here that I'm sure I'm going to forget talking about some of these. And the customization options, this is something that I like to spend a ton of time on. I think I may have spent more time customizing my stuff more than actually playing the game. The lightsaber and all its parts, BD1 and all his parts, your blaster, different color schemes and materials waiting to be found, Cal's facial hair, Cal's head hair, his clothing, jacket, pants, everything. You could truly make Cal stand out from everyone else's Cal. Not to mention his equipment and BD1. They can all look different. My only disappointment here with customization is that there doesn't seem a way to change the color scheme of your ship this time, which is a bit surprising considering that you could change that in Fallen Order. Another strong point of Survivor is the story. Again, I'll keep major plot points out of this discussion. The story takes place about 5 years after Fallen Order, so we're still exploring that era between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, that in-between era. To be exact, this story takes place around the same time as the Obi-Wan series. So Inquisitors are still running around, but Renegade Jedi numbers are dwindling. There's not very many left. But the story isn't a repeat of Fallen Order. It's fresh and it's new. It's not a game focusing mainly on Cal trying to escape the Empire and build the Jedi Order like the first one was. This one's something more like a Tomb Raider meets Star Wars story. It's very much focused on the mysteries of the past and ancient ruins, more specifically exploring an era of Star Wars that hasn't been fully fleshed out yet because it is fairly new. The High Republic era. I know a lot of the fans that are very anti-Disney Star Wars are immediately going to hate this, but I think it's great that they're fleshing out this time period, which happens to take place anywhere from about 200 to 500 years before the prequels. There's not a lot of major storylines out of the old Star Wars canon that are memorable there, so way after the Old Republic time period, but still before the entire Skywalker storyline. It's a sweet spot where they could kind of do whatever they want. And Cal's purpose is to solve the clues left behind during the High Republic era to figure out the secret of a mysterious planet that the Empire doesn't even know about. It's cool seeing how different the galaxy was during the High Republic, almost more advanced in some ways, since the Jedi were focused on expanding and exploring new worlds, instead of being soldiers in a clone war. And Cal is picking up on that unfinished quest. There's more to it than that, but again, let's keep it semi-spoiler free. Another aspect of the story is putting the pieces back together of his old team. When the game starts out, the old crew has been disbanded, Cal's been running missions with the rebels against the Empire, and everyone went their separate ways. So you meet some new faces, encounter the old ones, and a couple surprises along the way. As expected from a Star Wars game, there's a tie-in novel that explains the in-between events that happened after Fallen Order, which the game does allude to. I imagine if you're one of those fans that doesn't like any of the Disney-created material, you probably won't appreciate the focus on the High Republic era in this game, but then again, you probably wouldn't care for this game series to begin with. But I'm gonna go ahead and recommend you give it a shot anyways. It's an experience that feels more like LucasArts than Disney. The story's engaging and it makes you want to keep playing to uncover where it's heading. For me, it's going to be a while before I get to that ultimate conclusion because I'm too busy running around and collecting more plants from my garden and cleaning my fish tank. Yes, you have a fish tank too. A Star Wars game has been crafted that is 10 times bigger than its predecessor, and it fills in that much bigger canvas with extras that don't feel thrown in. They don't feel like filler, they don't feel like random side quests. Jedi Survivor is absolutely one of the best games that's been released this year. It definitely should be in the running for Game of the Year. And I hope we get a third entry in the series. Sure, there's some graphical quirks, nothing that serious, and it seems that the console version is the best way to play for now. But regardless, among Star Wars fans, Jedi Survivor is just a must-play. I'd love to hear from you guys though. What do you think of the game so far if you've played it? And if you haven't played it, do you plan to? Why or why not? Start the conversation in the comments section below, and I'll catch you guys later. That's the review.